Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Follow Your Passion. Let me introduce my guest of today. His name is Doug Lawrence. Doug is the founder of TalentC and co-founder of the international mentor community. After serving in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police for 25 years, Doug retired in 1999 at the rank of Staff Sargent. His service also left him with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. He has worked with researchers to examine the role of mentoring as a support to those struggling with PTSD. His experience in law enforcement, coupled with working with people suffering from PTSD, has afforded him a unique view of mentoring and PTSD. Doc is a volunteer mentor with the Sir Richard Branson Entrepreneur Program in the Caribbean and with the American Corporate Partners in the US. He's an international certified mentor, international speaker, and author about all facets of mentoring. He leads organizations to experience the benefits, how mentoring will encourage workforce culture to flow in harmony, improve productivity for employees, and reducing costly employee onboarding, improving the bottom line. He published The Gift of Mentoring in 2014, and his second book, You Are Not Alone, this January 2022. Welcome, Doug. Glad to have you on the show.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me.
So, would you say that as you have been diagnosed with PTSD once you retired from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, that your personal journey led you to the importance of mentoring so that you're now able to help others as well?
Yeah, it definitely did. It definitely did. My experiences, my experiences that I have gone through, both from my own self, from a physical and a mental perspective, but also the things that my family had to deal with as well. The time that I spent in the RCMP has certainly provided me with a lot of that background information.
Yeah, wow. And tell me a bit about the research you did with the about mentoring, its role with regards to PTSD.
Well, what I was trying to do was to be able to determine, is there actually a place for mentoring in that space, in that mental health space? And it was very difficult to find any literature, or for that matter, anybody who had experience in that field. And so I did quite a bit of research, and there was actually a research project underway here where I live that was actually examining different approaches to providing support to people that were dealing with mental health challenges or issues. And what I was able to find was that in a couple different places, and the exact location escapes me at this moment, but was the fact that they had actually created a role or a function within the organization for a mental health mentor. And I kind of picked up on that and started to, take a look and see, with some of the situations I'd gone through, what would anything have changed if I would have had that trained mentor that I could go to? And ultimately, obviously, my answer was yes. Things would have been different. And then I also looked at the people that I was mentoring who were dealing with mental health challenges. And once again, I was able to support the fact that had, they earlier on been exposed to a mentor who had, some training in the mental health space, that they would be a lot further along than what they are at this particular time point.
Nice. And I can totally understand what you're saying, because people dealing with PTSD, there's some sort of a caught in a vicious circle. They don't see any positive outcome, and it helps if they have somebody they can turn to that has been there, got through it, and can show them there's actually light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Yeah, that's right. And the other thing for us to think about, certainly for our listeners, is that there's the stigmatism around that, around mental health, that obviously the person's a little crazy and stuff like that, and that's not the case. But most of us can provide some sort of, we'll call it service for lack of a better choice of words, but can provide some support, even though we may not be trained in that particular area. Because, there are a couple things that everybody I have spoken to has said. We don't need to be diagnosed. We don't need any of that stuff. We just want somebody to listen and hear what it is that, our story. And we want somebody to be able to do that and be non-judgmental. So, not going and sort of have preconceived bias, not having, oh, here we go again sort of idea, right? Is to go into it open-minded, but with the idea in mind of, I'm going to listen and hear. I'm not going to pass judgment, nor am I going to say, well, if this was me, I would do this. You stay away from that, and your primary responsibility is to listen and hear.
Yeah, and that's it. It's right what you said. There's a lot of stigmatism around PTSD and people suffering from mental health issues. But I guess during the lockdown, it became more open to talk about these things, because a lot of people experience things they've never experienced before, by avoiding contact, and they start recognizing that there's so much more to mental health than people can imagine.
Most definitely. And the lockdown, the whole COVID thing was extremely difficult for a lot of people who were that sort of individual that has to have relationships, that has to have interaction with others. I know I went through withdrawals horribly much because I love to get out and I like to socialize with people. And of course, with what I do for my work with mentoring, it was very difficult to make that shift to going to the virtual space versus, in person. And even today, it's still very difficult to be able to send someone a message and say, meet me for coffee, because people are still hesitant to do so.
Yeah, I can totally imagine that. So tell me about your first book, The Gift of Mentoring. What was your intention with the book?
The book, it was, so both books actually were written from a little push or a friendly nudge from some of my mentors who said, so with the first book, The Gift of Mentoring, they said, you've written all these blog articles. Why don't you take and bring them all together into a book and publish a book? And I went, I don't know about that. I've never written a book before. And they said, no, you need to do this. So I went ahead, and in 2014, we published The Gift of Mentoring. And the idea behind it was that it's kind of like mentoring 101. It gives you sort of the basics, the processes, the concepts. There's some case studies in there that you can kind of go through and take a look and see, okay, if this was me, this is how I would respond, and so on and so forth. And a lot of people, probably the best feedback I had from that book, which made it a little bit more easier to make the decision to write the second one, was that with The Gift of Mentoring, people said that it was like I was sitting right beside you on a park bench and you were reading the story, because your voice, as I'm reading this story, I can just hear your voice coming out through the pages. And so it was, quite a acknowledgement of how the book was written. And then when we fast forward to You Are Not Alone, that one was the same sort of concept. Was the idea came from some of my mentors, some of my colleagues who said, okay, Doug, you're mentoring people with post-traumatic stress, you're dealing with people who have got anxiety, depression, and all those things. Why aren't you writing a book about this? And I went, okay. And so I did. I wrote the book You Are Not Alone, which is primarily focused on the idea of how can mentoring be part of the support structure for mental health. And we published it in 2022, so this year in January, actually. It was published and it became a #1 bestseller on Amazon.
Wow.
So yeah, I was quite hadn't planned on that, but I was quite honored that it received that recognition.
Yeah, and it's great, you know. And I also think that you're not alone. Even the title, you know, it says that people with mental health challenges, you know, they can associate with the title. You know, but most people think they're alone. You know, that they're the only one that have this issue. They might feel ashamed or guilt, you know, but that they have to deal with it. And I guess this book opens up the conversation about it, and that's the beauty of it. So I think a lot of people will associate with it, especially with the title. It will attract them.
Yes, most definitely. And you know, what's interesting is that I hear that phrase, "You are not alone." I hear that quite often now, and maybe it's just because I'm in tune with, who's talking about the book now. But you know, it can be some folks will even be saying, you know, please just reach out to me if you ever need any help, because you need to know you're not alone. And I'm going, just a minute now, that's my line. What do you?
Yeah. Well, it's at least you got this title for your book, because if you would have called it Me Too, then you would have other issues.
Yes, that's right. Exactly.
So it always amazes me what kind of ripple effect a book can have. You know, if you're doing a lot of one-on-one coaching, you see the direct results. But publishing a book, you know, it can help so many people without you even realizing it. So was that also a driver for you to publish the book?
Yes, it was. The idea was to, #1, to heighten the awareness of mentoring by itself, and then to heighten the awareness and get people starting to think that, just a minute now, mentoring can be part of the support structure for mental health. I know I'm doing some work with a couple different organizations that are actually looking at creating a different health model where they deal with people who are struggling with mental health challenges, who may be suicidal and all of that. And they too have now recognized, as a result of the book and a number of other things, that there is a place for mentoring to play in the mental health space. And, you know, the book has helped us move further along that path, where people, when they read the book and they come back, and I actually had somebody here 2 days ago sent me a message and said, "I'd like to get together for a coffee and stuff like that with you. And by the way, I've been reading your book, and you need to get this book out to more people." And how can we go about getting the story, the message about mentoring and mental health? How can we go about getting that out there? Because that is part of the solution.
Yeah, nice. And so in your own words, you know, there are a lot of definitions of mentoring, coaching, training. So in your own words, what's the difference between a mentor and a coach?
There's a lot of similarities.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you know, we need to acknowledge that. For me, the difference between a mentor and a coach is, typically my experiences have been with coaches, is that they're brought into an organization to work with a particular employee who is having performance issues or challenges. And they basically, as I call it, they drive the bus. They determine what the agenda is going to be, and what are the tasks that the coachee needs to do in order to move forward and get back on track again from a performance perspective. With a mentor, we would come at it from the aspect of it being a longer term relationship. So, for example, I have people that I'm mentoring today that we've had a mentoring relationship for 5 or 6 years now. And I don't see that in the coaching space where it's more defined. And then I guess the other part is I find that especially with the work that I'm doing in the mental health space, I see that more and more often that is more of what a mentor would be involved in, just because of the interpersonal and stuff like that, versus what the coach would be. And oh my gosh, there's so much literature out there on what is a coach and what's a mentor. And at the end of the day, the definition, I guess, is one thing, but at the end of the day, the ultimate goal here is to provide healing of some sort, whether it be coaching or mentoring to somebody who is in need. And whether you do that through coaching or whether you do that through mentoring, as long as we don't leave them on the island by themselves, I think that's the answer.
That's a wonderful answer, Doc, indeed. And if I look at it from my perspective, I always say that a mentor is somebody that has been through the situation, and a coach doesn't need to have the same experience. If you look at soccer, for instance, Lionel Messi is one of the world's greatest soccer players, Ronaldo as well. They could be a great mentor for other soccer players, right? As if a coach who drives the team, he doesn't need to have been a great soccer player, but he can get the best out of other people. And I think that with your experience, you're a great mentor for people that are suffering from mental health issues. So you're also supporting organizations, to integrate mentoring in their culture, in their programs. Is it also because most mentoring, if people come to you, they have issues, but would you say that mentoring also helps preventing mental health issues if done the right way?
Oh, definitely, without a doubt. You can come at it from a reactive or a proactive perspective, right? And organizations can actually set up a mentoring program with a mental health flavor to it that will help their organization be able to move forward. But what it's also going to do is it's going to provide that place where employees can go to get the guidance that they need to have somebody who can support them through some of the things they're dealing with. I actually had an organization where I was meeting with one of the employees, and I was just telling a bit of the story of mentoring and mental health, and they go, we have a couple of employees that would really benefit from your service. And I said, okay, well, who do I talk to? And they said, well, just let me go back and see what I can figure out. So they go back to their office, and we set up another 2 weeks down the road, another coffee meeting. And I go, so where are we going now? And they said, probably nowhere, because they didn't really want to engage anybody to come in. They figured, things aren't too bad right now, so if they get worse, then we'll have to deal with it then. And I'm thinking, like, how can you treat an employee like that? Number one is, we'll let you continue on, and having your times where you need to vent, or that you all of a sudden you just explode and you need somebody to talk to. And so we're okay with letting that go unsupported. And I'm thinking, not the place I want to be.
No, I can't. Yeah, it's like, we'll just wait until it's too late, and then we'll call you again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and people have a tendency to not understand, or choose not to understand, that mental health can be a progressive journey. And the end of the journey is a very traumatic experience where somebody may take their own life, right? And if that happens, we've all failed. And right, and so people need to understand that if we're proactive, we can probably save some of those situations from actually happening. If we're reactive, unless we do something to change that, it's probably not, it's not going to end well.
Yeah, and that I have to agree to that. It's if you're always reactive, you're chasing after the facts, and that's never a good way of doing business or doing anything, actually. So tell me a bit about your volunteer work as well, because you're not only doing this as a paid job, but you're actually also a volunteer mentor with the Sir Richard Branson project, and the other one with the where you're helping I think former soldiers that are dealing with PTSD. So tell me a bit about that, Doug.
Yeah, so the Sir Richard Branson Entrepreneur Program in the Caribbean is what he's gone and done is he's set up a support structure for entrepreneurs in that geographical area. So he's set up a support structure, so they end up assigning mentors to work with these young entrepreneurs to help them get their business off the ground and contribute back to the geographical area that they're from. So I've been mentoring now for 3-4 years with their program. I've worked with some extremely brilliant young entrepreneurs. I worked with a couple of guys that had started a restaurant in Jamaica. I've worked with and still am working with a young lady that has her own IT, information technology consulting business. And then I'm working with a young lady that is in the communication and public speaking business. And so we're working together to take her business to a new level. So nice. So it's been it's a lot of virtual work. So I'm still trying to figure out how I can get to Jamaica, but we'll sort that out later, I guess. And then with American corporate partners in the United States, I've probably had 3 or 4 people now that I have been working with. And the idea behind their program is to help. They provide mentors to service personnel that are transitioning from service life to civilian life. And what a lot of people don't understand is that when they're going through that transitioning process, they're also bringing with them some things, some trauma that they have had to deal with as a service person. So, they may have been frontline battle people where, there's shells flying all over the place, and, even more, we could get a lot more graphic than that, but, they've had to deal with some of that stuff. Even an example of some of the triggers that they're working with is that, they would be so accustomed to guns firing right beside them and bombs going off and all that sort of stuff. And they would be in civilian life, they'd go to a state fair or something where they released firecrackers, and that would trigger a memory for them of being back in combat. Right. So it's a matter of how do we go through and deal with that? What are some of the coping skills we can give them to be able to help them deal with that? Right. So.
And the reason I asked for your volunteering mentorship is that it shows that it's really something you're passionate about, right? You're not doing it for the money. You're doing it because you love to mentor people, help them with the mental health issues, and luckily you're getting paid for it.
Yeah. my favorite line is, I will never leave you on the island by yourself. And I mean that. If it came down to having to do something pro bono because somebody didn't have the money, then we would just do it and get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great attitude, Doug. So could you mention one of your success stories from a client you helped that made a real impact in their lives?
I actually had a young person who got referred to me by another mentor, and they were unable to be able to get anywhere. And what was happening was the young person was becoming discouraged because they kept sending out resumes and they were getting no responses and everything else. And so they asked if I would meet to see if there was something I could do. And so I arranged to meet this person at a coffee shop, and right soon as she walked in the door, I could tell right away that here was somebody who didn't believe in themselves, who had low self-esteem, lack of confidence, self-doubt, self-worth, all of the selves, as I call them. She didn't believe in herself. And so I started us off by simply saying, help me understand why you don't believe in yourself as much as I believe in you. And we progressively went from there and started going. And I basically did is what I call a makeover of that individual, where I got her to believe who she was. She did positive affirmations on Post-it notes and stuck them on the bathroom mirror and stuff like that. So she was getting herself into a state of positivity every morning. And to make a long story short, what ended up happening was got her to change her resume, make it more positive, got her to believe in what she was writing. She started to apply on jobs, and within a week, she had 3 job opportunities on her lap. And since then, she has, she got hired. She worked here in the city for a bit, and then got offered a job at head office in Toronto, Ontario, and has gone on to have a great career. And it was all because we took the time to look inside to see what was actually inside that person. And there was so much good that once we figured out how to get it outside, then she started to grow as a person.
Nice. And wonderful result as well, Doc. Something you can be proud of, indeed. It reminds me of what one of my coaches said, that if you would consider yourself as a box, you never know what's on the label. So you need somebody outside of the box to read the label and see what's inside of it. Yeah. And that's exactly what you did. You looked at the golden nuggets that were inside of her. You made her realize that it's actually a part of her, and she grew into that, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So you said that you're building long-lasting relationships with your clients because of the mentoring, of course.
Yeah.
Do you still keep in touch with your former clients even when the mentoring is over?
Yeah, I do. Even after we've actually, one thing that I always tell people is, if you get into a mentoring relationship with me, it's a relationship for life. And that's, so that can mean, as I usually will do sometimes, I tell people, so mentoring can be a long-term relationship. In fact, I said I'll bump into somebody I've been mentoring in the grocery store, and I'll just ask them, how you doing? And do we need to get together? No, you're fine. Okay, great. So we'll see you again next time, so to speak, but for me, it's important to keep those relationships going, because I don't want the perception to be that, you go see Doug and Doug helps you and then that's it. He disappears, and it's almost as though you care at that time point, but you don't care beyond that. And that's not how I work.
Yeah, I totally get that. Um, it's actually when you're mentoring or even also with coaching, especially one-to-one, you're actually building, uh, you I would almost say you get very intimate, because if you truly want to help a person, that person needs to open up. And when I started with hypnotherapy 7 years ago, my mentor also said, you have to, if you want people to change, or you have to set the example. So you have to open up yourself as well. So you get to know each other very good. So it would be uh, almost unhuman to let them go and not see them anymore, because especially when you have been together and worked together through some tough times, you just become some sort of friends, and that's something you should cherish, actually.
Yeah, and the thing that I have found is that I have to be willing to share something personal about myself with the person that I'm mentoring, because that helps us create that pathway for that journey because I become vulnerable, and by doing that, I let them know that it's okay to be vulnerable, and that's how we're going to be able to move forward, and
Yeah.
it works great.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually what I meant indeed. You set the example. You create a safe environment where you show that it's okay to be vulnerable and to talk about the things that bother you and challenge you. And well, coming to your book again, you're showing them they're not alone. Right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, beautiful. So is there any inspiration to start a third book of some sort?
Yes.
I was afraid so.
Yeah. I actually went away for a week, probably 2-3 weeks ago. I went away to um, a location. It had some ties to it. It was the first place that my so I've lost my wife to cancer back
Mm.
in 2021, and this was actually our first posting as a husband and wife team in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So I went back to this location, and it helped me with the creativity that I was looking to get started, but I did get a chance to get started writing again, and I got about 20 or 30 pages of content started on the next book. The next book is going to be called The Silent Pandemic, and it's going to speak to a large part of at least at the beginning of the book, is going to talk about mentoring and grief, and how mentoring can be part of the support for people that are grieving and going through that process. And then we'll get into more of the mental health, even though grief is part of mental health as well. So I want to be able to expand on what we talked about in You Are Not Alone, and expand. So yeah, it's The Silent Pandemic is the title, and I'm hoping to be to have the book published in February of next year.
Nice. Unfortunately, very sad to hear that you lost your wife last year due to cancer. It's a very bad disease. And with that respect, you're not alone as well on that case. So, but as long as you have great memories of her, she's still alive in some sort.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, being are you yourself still being mentored by somebody?
Yeah, I still have people that I consider to be my mentor, most definitely. Yeah, everybody needs to have one or two mentors for sure, and I'm blessed. I've got some really great people that are there to guide me, and when it came to the book You Are Not Alone, they were also there to kick my butt to tell me to get going. So
Yeah.
it's Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to have such let's call them accountability partners, right?
Yeah.
It's when you're going to the gym on your own, you might do that for a month until something happens, and before you know it, you're only paying the subscription. But having a second partner there, it definitely helps to keep you motivated and to persevere and go on. So, yeah.
Yeah. You need to have those accountability partners, because that's what I know. That's what keeps me going. Is if it had not been for Catherine kicking my butt, I don't think I'd have. I would have had a half-finished book sitting on the bookshelf. So, and you know, and what's also interesting is that little push is now, it's baited me. It's got me going where now I look forward to sitting down and writing, and I'm already thinking of what's the next book after, you know, so yeah.
It's like a positive disease, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think with your experience, Doc, and wisdom, you got a lot more to share with the world. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah, Doc, I think we can talk for hours on the subject of mentoring and mental health. You know, and it's wonderful that we're able to use our skills and talents to make a difference in people's lives. You know, it's so satisfying to see the results when your clients transform or make this positive shift that you were looking for. If you could share a little tip or little piece of wisdom with the audience, what would that be, Doc?
You know, the most important piece of wisdom I can give is that it's okay to reach out and ask for help. It's okay to say, I need help. And that all of us need to, when somebody comes to you and says, I'm having a bad day and I could sure use help, don't walk away. Extend your hand and say, I am here to help. You are not alone.
Wonderful advice. I hope people will take it up on them. So if people want to know more about you, Doc, or get in touch with you, how can you do that?
So they can go to my website, www.TalentC, so the word talent, letter C on the end.ca. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. So just search on Doug Lawrence and you'll find me, and you can message me through that if you so wish. And there's some good stuff that's, you know, in my LinkedIn profile as well that give you an idea whether you want to reach out to me or not. So, and then finally, I have no problems whatsoever if people want to send me an email and we can, you know, get a dialogue started. And my email address, you can get it through the website, but I'll give it to you here now, is doug.lawrence, LAWRENCE, at TalentC, so the word talent, letter C on the end.ca.
Nice. And of course, I guess you're all over Amazon with your books, Doug, as well.
Yes, I am. Amazon.com has carries both.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you for sharing your experience, knowledge, and wisdom. I had a wonderful conversation. I hope you liked it too. And let's keep in touch, Doug.
Yes, let's do that.